The Toyota Way, 14 Management Principles from the World's Greatest Manufacturer by Jeffrey K. Liker, published in 2003. In The Toyota Way, engineering professor Jeffrey K. Liker explains how businesses can improve operations by adopting Toyota's underlying ideologies. Since the Japanese company's founding in the 1930s, Toyota has dedicated itself to continually improving both its products and processes. The company invented a production method called the Lean Method, or the Toyota Production System, TPS, which has helped countless businesses eliminate waste, or muda, in their manufacturing process. The 14 principles that make up the Toyota Way allow the company to manufacture products that meet consumer expectations as well as market demand. Toyota encourages an atmosphere where employee safety and well-being is prioritized. The company famously avoids layoffs, instead reassigning workers to different manufacturing processes or departments. By emulating Toyota's principles and practices, an executive can build a profitable and efficient company without sacrificing quality or overworking employees. In the late 1800s, a young boy from rural Japan named Sakichi Toyoda noticed how hard the women in his family had to work at weaving. Inspired to decrease the amount of work for weavers, Toyota invented an automated loom with a built-in mechanism to stop production whenever an error occurred. After Toyota opened his first factory in 1926, his invention quickly spread throughout the country. Later, Toyota encouraged his son, Kiichiro Toyoda, to start an automobile business. He instructed Kiichiro to run the company in such a way that it would contribute to the betterment of society. In so doing, he demonstrated the first of the 14 guiding principles Toyota has developed over its history. That businesses should base their decisions on stable, lasting philosophy rather than on annual profits or quarterly company earnings. More than a decade later, the Lean Method was invented by Teiichi Ohno, a Toyota plant manager, who wanted to improve on the assembly line created by Henry Ford. Assembly lines allow companies to quickly make uniform products, but also reward leaders for the number of items they create, rather than whether their methods are profitable or productive. Ohno recognized that standard mass production often resulted in stockpiled inventory, which could mask problems in the company's workflow. TPS, on the other hand, required Toyota to consider how each action would be valuable to the customer. TPS further required the company to strive for a flow system, which creates a product in one continuous process and only initiates the manufacturing process when the customer needs the product. Toyota has encouraged other companies to use the TPS method and has coached other businesses directly on how to apply the company's principles. While perfect flow will never be achieved, TPS can still be used as an aspirational ideal. Companies that unsuccessfully try to implement the Lean Method tend to fail because they do not adhere to the 14 principles of the Toyota Way. The first principle, as mentioned above, is to create a company that focuses on long-term strategy. The second is to implement a method that invites continuous improvement, or Kaizen. The third principle is to create a manufacturing process called a just-in-time system, which uses customer demand to determine how quickly to restock materials and finish products. The fourth principle encourages companies to even out production volumes, thereby easing stress on staff and machinery alike. The fifth principle mandates that companies should fix problems as they arise, even if it means temporarily halting production. Under the sixth and seventh principles, companies are instructed to standardize their methods and use visual systems that help leaders keep track of manufacturing. The eighth principle encourages companies to only use technology if it adds value to the production process. The ninth, 10th, and 11th principles ask companies to develop leaders, employees, and partners who thoroughly embody the business's guiding philosophy. The 12th and 13th principles state that organizations learn and grow when they solve problems and make decisions as a group. Last, the 14th principle encourages relentless improvement along with habitual reevaluation of existing methods. These principles are not synonymous with TPS, but are essential to its effectiveness. Implementing TPS and the principles of the Toyota Way may take time and incur initial costs, but companies that successfully do so will learn how to create valuable products in healthier, more productive work environments. This report uses the second edition of the Toyota Way, which was released in 2004. Key insights. 1. TPS is best learned through experimentation and selective implementation. 2. Most jobs have tasks which can be standardized and placed into a one-piece flow system. 3. Companies can standardize production methods without eliminating flexibility or learning opportunities. 4. Creating a diagram of the production process can help a company identify muda. 5. Businesses can prevent overproduction by using visual systems to initiate the next step in a process. 6. To maintain flow, companies must be willing to temporarily halt production. 7. Buying better technology will not create a lean manufacturing process. 8. Toyota's corporate culture has remained intact because it has carefully cultivated its leaders. Analysis. Key Insight 1. TPS is best learned through experimentation and selective implementation. When Toyota launched an overseas factory in partnership with GM in the 1980s, it inherited a workforce that was skeptical of the company's intentions and methods. To convince key employees to try Toyota's system, the company sent union leaders from GM's plant to its Japanese factories, where they could observe and participate in TPS projects. The union workers were given the opportunity to benefit from the Genchi Genbutsu, a vital Japanese concept at the heart of the 12th principle. It means that workers must directly see a process to fully understand it. Toyota's method for teaching its processes to new hires follows the system humans already use to quickly and intuitively acquire new skills. Babies and toddlers will typically watch adults walk, talk, and interact with each other for days or even months before becoming able to mimic that behavior. Once babies are ready to actually try the new skill, they use information absorbed from adults and older children to replicate actions. Educators also utilize the mind's automatic gravitation toward mimicry to help students learn new concepts. The process, sometimes referred to as observational learning, relies on the idea that people can learn more by watching others acquire a skill than they can by learning this skill from a teacher directly. Humans are naturally geared toward the passive acquisition of new skills and ideas, and sometimes learn better when given the chance to do so at their own pace. By employing observational learning, Toyota's onboarding system allows employees to grasp TPS naturally instead of acquiring it in a classroom atmosphere, where it could easily be dismissed as an impractical philosophy. Key Insight 2. Most jobs have tasks which can be standardized and placed into a one-piece flow system. One-piece flow systems standardize all worker actions and eliminate unnecessary tasks so that a product is assembled and delivered through a single, uninterrupted process. Usually, this is accomplished by moving stations closer together or using an assembly line. That concept, while created for the manufacturer of physical goods, can be adapted for non-factory settings. Office workers can consider which tasks they do every day and create a process for quickly and efficiently completing that work. For example, a company can send internal updates in a similar format each time to make it easier for workers to quickly scan for the information they need. When a company first standardizes some operations, it may notice some initial startup costs. For example, businesses might decide to print up employee manuals that workers can refer to when learning new rules, or put up posters that illustrate the proper method for completing a routine task. Those materials will cost money that will need to be built into the implementation plan. Bosses will also need to be patient with workers who may struggle for a few weeks to properly engage in the new standardized activity because they have become so accustomed to doing it in an individual fashion. Over time, the process should yield productivity and cost-saving benefits. When employed correctly, standardization can ensure that a business never misses an opportunity or fails to address a customer complaint. A business can standardize the process of returning emails and phone calls, for example, or can use a checklist to ensure that employees are addressing all customer concerns. If a company is willing to be patient and test a new method for a substantial period of time, standardization can help smooth the existing production process and result in increased revenue. Key Insight 3. Companies can standardize production methods without eliminating flexibility or learning opportunities. For some employees, standardization may spark fear that the company will become a strict bureaucracy. However, the Toyota ideology does not function when applied to a coercive bureaucracy where rules are mandated and deviation is never allowed. Toyota is instead considered an enabling bureaucracy. It promotes standard rules to guide processes, but empowers employees to experiment with potentially better methods. Standardization does not necessarily lead a company to experience creative stagnation. When workers create their own schedules and protocols, they can encounter unforeseen delays and experience a loss of productivity. A 2018 study conducted by Harvard Business School examined the diagnosing practices of doctors who work in radiology departments. The researchers found that these doctors had recommended protocols and routines their employers expected them to follow. As they became more experienced, however, the doctors would start to deviate from the standard procedure. They would begin grouping together tasks by perceived difficulty level or by their similarity to one another, in an effort to save time and effort. Both of these deviations ended up lessening productivity among doctors. Physicians took more time to complete tasks than they would have if they followed the standard operating order. The changes that the doctors made to the routines were not actual improvements on the existing system and were not implemented to solve specific structural problems. By deviating from standard practices, workers might think they've developed a faster methodology. However, the established protocol, when optimized using the lean method, is more likely to produce consistent and satisfactory results. Key Insight 4. Creating a diagram of the production process can help a company identify muda. When first implementing Toyota's principles, a company should create a flowchart that documents each step of the existing manufacturing procedure. By mapping out its processes, the company will be able to visualize which steps are absolutely vital for production. The company can additionally identify steps that aren't directly related to satisfying the customer's needs, but are still vital to the operation. Any remaining steps can then be eliminated. Individual workers can also benefit from the process of mapping out their daily routines. If employees are uncertain which activities are acting as a drain on their day, they might consider using a time-tracking widget, like the mobile application Toggl, to get a better sense of how they spend their time. Toggl connects with popular apps and internet platforms to document how long an employee stays focused on a task and how much time is spent on irrelevant activities. A breakdown of the user's day is provided in the form of a colorful, attractive circle chart. By itself, however, a time-tracking widget cannot improve productivity. The employee will still need to utilize TPS and consider which tasks are adding value for the customer. When used as a helpful tool, Toggl can provide a more objective look at employees' day than they might provide themselves when asked to map out daily habits at work. When used in conjunction with Toyota's ideology, widgets like Toggl can become a good barometer to determine how well an employee is staying on task. Key Insight 5. Businesses can prevent overproduction by using visual systems to initiate the next step in a process. The minute they step on the factory floor, Toyota production managers can tell which machines are down, which stations are behind on work, and whether employees are running low on vital parts. To accomplish this, a Toyota manager follows the Kanban system, which uses visual signals to alert workers when potential problems arise. Under Kanban, workplaces establish a standard protocol for what a given visual signal means, and then instruct employees on how to address that signal. For example, an empty container placed in a designated spot could be a signal for more parts. Kanban should remain visible to everyone in the workplace and should ideally be placed in a physical environment. If a company only uses an app to implement Kanban, workers are more likely to miss the relevant signal. Entrepreneurs and other self-employed individuals can benefit from Kanban if they personalize the system to their work. One method for implementing Kanban on an individual level is to buy a whiteboard or a large blank poster that can easily be displayed on a wall. The Kanban board can then be divided into categories, such as tasks that need to be completed, those that are in progress, and those that are already done. Sticky notes can be used to write down tasks that need to be sorted into the Kanban system. When creating this method, entrepreneurs should set a limit on the number of tasks they can work on at any given time. Once they become accustomed to the method, they can glance at the board and get a sense for how busy they are that week, how far they've progressed on their goals, and whether they can handle any additional tasks. Just as some of Toyota's Kanban can indicate when it is time to reorder a specific part or start a new task, an individual Kanban system can tell a self-employed worker when it's time to pick up a new task and when it's time to pass on an assignment because of overscheduling. Over time, workers may find opportunities to further customize the process, adding more signals to their Kanban to aid their general productivity. Key Insight 6. To maintain flow, companies must be willing to temporarily halt production. In manufacturing plants across the United States, workers are often hesitant to stop the assembly line, even if they notice a critical problem. Leaders at these companies tend to be compensated based on how many parts they produce and how long the line runs without interruption. They are sometimes punished if they experience lengthy shutdowns. At Toyota, stopping the line to fix a problem is not frowned upon. The company knows that it costs more money in the long run to repair or replace faulty products than it does to shut down the assembly line for a short period of time. Companies must be willing to slow down or stop if they want to prevent problems from slowing production. Even outside of companies that use assembly lines, halting the production or service process can sometimes be the best step. Virginia Mason, a health system in Seattle, decided it would create its own method for temporarily stopping work in its hospitals after company leaders visited Toyota facilities in Japan. During their visit, the hospital's higher-ups noticed the Kanban system used to signal temporary assembly line shutdowns. At the time, the hospital was looking for an alternative to its existing patient safety alert system, which had been in place for years but was highly inefficient. The system was ideally meant to alert leaders to bad practices instantly, so that they could be quickly corrected. When employees filed patient safety reports using the existing system, however, the reports were often sent to different departments, where they would become misplaced or go unaddressed for long periods of time. The hospital decided to emulate Toyota's system and created a new patient safety alert protocol that would allow team members to notify their supervisors and coworkers instantly about any issues. Virginia Mason also reassured workers that they would not face repercussions if they decided to use the new system, and workers gradually gained confidence in the changes. By learning from Toyota's willingness to stop the assembly line the minute a problem is noticed, Virginia Mason was able to improve patient care and ensure that customers' needs were addressed immediately. It was also able to create an atmosphere where employees felt empowered to point out bad practices if they noticed them. Key Insight 7. Buying better technology will not create a lean manufacturing process. Often, companies assume that they can implement the lean method by buying expensive equipment with the latest built-in technology. However, Computers, despite being powerful tools, are not as flexible or as useful as human beings. If the staff doesn't buy into TPS and Toyota's principles, then the equipment will soon become a costly boondoggle that's ignored in favor of older practices. In some cases, factories actually become more efficient when they eliminate or reduce their use of technology. Mercedes, for example, started cutting back on its number of robots in the late 2010s to meet rising consumer demands for custom vehicles. The company recognized that car buyers wanted their vehicles to be specified to taste, but the number of tasks necessary to complete these custom orders far outweighed what the existing technology could be expected to do. Rather than spend hours reprogramming machines between tasks, the company decided to rely more on its workers, who would be better able to switch between different car models and meet customer expectations. However, the company didn't completely phase out automation. For example, to install an interactive windshield that displays the vehicle's speed and route, Mercedes bought new, smaller robots that could be more easily moved around the factory floor. In the future, more companies will likely use a combination of small, flexible robots and human labor to complete manufacturing tasks that are too complex for bigger machines to efficiently handle. Key Insight 8. Toyota's corporate culture has remained intact because it has carefully cultivated its leaders. Toyota maintains the original family's vision by choosing leaders who share the same qualities and principles as its founders. Its careful selection process enables the company to maintain a consistent workplace environment. Businesses should choose leaders who fit in well with the corporate culture and who are dedicated to ensuring its continued existence. Ideally, leaders should be chosen from internal candidates who are already familiar with the company's process and can better understand the company's overall goals. When choosing a leader who will preserve established corporate culture, a company shouldn't necessarily judge candidates by how well their personalities match those of their successors. The right executive may not act much like the last successful person to hold that position, but may still have the company's overall ideals in mind. After Steve Jobs was diagnosed with terminal cancer, the Apple CEO and founder made it known that Tim Cook, then Chief Operating Officer, would be the next person to helm the company. Customers and employees balked at the suggestion. Cook's mild, reclusive personality contrasted sharply with Jobs' assertive, gregarious personality. Many doubted that Apple would continue to create innovative products with Cook at its helm. Cook did not need to have Jobs-specific talents to ensure the company's performance and mission stayed consistent after the enigmatic leader's death, however. He had a knack for just-in-time systems, like the ones promoted at Toyota facilities, and had proven himself capable of meeting or exceeding customer demand during highly publicized product launches. Cook even managed to save the company money by partnering with overseas facilities that could handle the demands of making last-minute design changes for high-demand items. Jobs and Cook may have had different temperaments, but Jobs knew Cook understood the most fundamental aspects of the business. He had been a key player at the organization for years and knew how to maintain Apple's reputation as a forward-thinking and innovative corporation. These characteristics are more significant than individual personality when attempting to maintain a corporate culture during a transition in leadership. Important people. Jeffrey K. Liker teaches engineering at the University of Michigan. He has written several books about Toyota's production system and governing philosophy, including Toyota Culture and Toyota Under Fire. Sakichi Toyoda, 1867 to 1930, was an inventor who launched the Toyota empire after creating a popular automatic loom. His son, Kiichiro Toyoda, 1894 to 1952, later created the Toyota Motor Corporation at his father's urging. Henry Ford, 1863 to 1947, was an American entrepreneur who famously used an early assembly line to mass-produce Ford automobiles. His production method informed the development of the Toyota production system. Taiichi Ohno, 1912 to 1990, was a Toyota executive credited with inventing the Toyota production system in the 1950s to help the company compete with Ford. Author style. The Toyota Way gives a comprehensive model of Toyota's founding philosophy and its operational standards as of the early 2000s, complete with interviews with important executives and in-depth examples showing how Toyota's success can be replicated. In some sections, Leiker's writing can get repetitive. He takes every opportunity to point out when one of the 14 management principles is being applied in his examples, and usually repeats the rule in full during these sections. The Toyota Way is divided into 3 sections. The first part introduces Toyota's philosophy and provides a brief synopsis of the company's history. It explains how Toyota's philosophy and the Toyota production system were developed over the span of multiple decades. It also includes case studies to demonstrate how Toyota's principles guided the creation of the Prius and Lexus. The second part dedicates an individual chapter to each of Toyota's 14 guiding principles. The last part explains how companies can adapt Toyota's philosophies and tactics to improve their own businesses regardless of industry. Leiker also includes illustrations and charts that help explain his points. He provides a quote from a Toyota founder or employee at the beginning of most chapters, and includes notes about his references at the end of relevant sections. The book contains 22 chapters in total, as well as a foreword, preface, dedication, and a list of related books. Author's perspective. Jeffrey K. Leiker's writing could be mistaken for material produced directly by Toyota. Leiker doesn't hold back his praise for the company and seems to have used his fondness for the car manufacturer to guide his career for the past several decades. He founded and remains a partner of the Toyota Way Academy, a program that teaches the Toyota ideology and the company's production system. That service has no connection to Toyota directly. He has also written at least 8 books about Toyota. The latest, The Toyota Way to Service Excellence, was published in 2016. Part of Leiker's admiration for Toyota's system is rooted in his fascination with the underlying cultural differences between American and Japanese workers. However, he is clear that Toyota did not become successful simply by being a Japanese company. Car manufacturers in Japan were prone to the same overproduction mistakes that factories in the United States made on a larger scale before Toyota implemented TPS. Leiker seems to consider Toyota to be exemplary in its practices, even when compared with other top companies. Due to his confidence in the company's abilities, he tends to compare Toyota to major U.S. manufacturers as a whole, rather than singling out a specific brand to contrast the corporation with.